Good morning, 5th and 6th graders. I am out this morning. I'll be back in the afternoon, but I want to make sure that you do not miss out on the important work that we have been doing. So far, you have done a wonderful job with your shoulder partner deciding which tribe our museum should be returning these important artifacts to. Should they be going to the Abenaki tribe, the Hopi tribe, or the Kwakwaka tribe? You still have a little bit more work with your shoulder partner to do before I feel like we are ready to discuss. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give you and your shoulder partner 5 more minutes to get as much as you can get done on your graphic organizer. So when I say go, you and your shoulder partner are going to make sure that you have a stack of artifacts. I left them on the back table. And you are going to go back to your working spot. Hopefully your computers are already up and loaded. If they are not, you can stop this video now, do that, and then click play again. When you are ready, you are going to take 5 minutes to just make sure that you have as much evidence as you can to support your different artifacts and what tribe they should go to. Your teacher will stop you in about 5 minutes, and then you will resume this video for the next step, right? So where you are going to get up to your spot and continue with your shoulder partner. See if you can get the rest of this sheet filled out wherever you had left it. If not, it's okay. You have enough to work with. All right, take 5 minutes and go. All right, hopefully in those 5 minutes you got far. At this time, you should be moving back to your seats. So take a second right now, pick up your computers, move back to your seats if you haven't done so already. And we're going to move on to the next step, sharing with the rest of your teammates what your findings were. So let me show you the steps for this. At your team, let me just make this bigger. At your team, you're just going to choose one set of documents that are going to be used for this piece. Those are going to go in the center of your table. The other set can just be put off to the side right now. One at a time, you're going to go through these documents and you're going to discuss which tribe you put them in. So you're just going to start at the top and you're going to look at that top one, and each team is going to explain which tribe that artifact should be returned to and what was their evidence from it. I hope that your evidence takes specific words out of the document or points to really small details in the pictures to really prove why they should go to that tribe. Right? Once both teams have shared about that one particular document, which one did both of you say that this one should go to and why, then you're just going to pick up that document and you're going to move it to the side and look at the next one. You'll continue that process until you have looked at and discussed all of the artifacts that are in that stack as a team. I noticed that I made this a little too big that you can't see your sponge, so let's make this small. All right. If you finish before the majority of the groups and you have some extra time to kill, then you're going to discuss which tribes did you have in common and which ones were different. Which artifacts did you say were going to go to different places? Once you've established that, can you convince the other team that the tribe that you chose was actually the correct one? And can you point them to specific evidence for why you think that tribe was actually the correct one over the one that they chose? And remember, none of you know which tribes these go to yet, so there's no harm in trying to step out there and take a guess. All right. I'm going to set you up to do this in a second. You need your computer still open with you so that you can look at your document. You're going to choose that one set that are going to go into the middle. These are your steps that you need to do. When you finish that as a class, then your teacher can just click play again on this document. You can stop the video and you can go. All right, so you have gone through all your documents and you and your shoulder partner have shared with your team where you think that each of these artifacts should be returned to. You feel like you have a pretty good sense right now about where everything goes. So let me now show you where everything is going to be returned to. I was actually wildly impressed with how accurately you were able to place these artifacts with tribes and the minute details that you chose as your evidence. So, here's where each of these belonged. We had several Abenaki artifacts, including these two men hunting this deer, needs to be returned to the Abenaki. The recipe for Mushrat fiddlehead stew is being returned to the Abenaki. This basket is being returned to the Abenaki, and I loved that many of you noticed that it was birch bark, and that's a tree that is very common in the Northeast in those cold temperatures. The wigwam is being returned to the Abenaki, and I love to see that so many of you noted that it was able to hold up against the worst weather in any region and could keep very warm inside. The articles of clothing were being returned to the Abenaki, and you'll notice I whited out some important information for you guys so it wasn't a giveaway, but you notice that they were cold weather clothes, and you notice the animals that many of these pieces were made out of. Then we're moving on to the Hopi. The Katsina dolls, these are being returned to the Hopi. I noticed that many of you looked and saw that they have the power to bring rain and exercise control over the weather, meaning they'd be important in a place that did not have very much rain. The woven basket is also being returned to the Hopi. When we look at it in color, you can notice the clay and earth and sand colors of kind of the desert. You can see this corn here that was an important crop that was grown for the Hopi and didn't need as much water as other crops. The painting is also being returned to the Hopi. Many of you noticed the rattlesnake. You noticed that this was in a circle similar to the creation story that we listened to. And you noticed that the colors, well, you didn't have colors, but like the patterns seemed similar to the Castina dolls. In last thing returned to the Hopi was this gold ring. I heard a lot of you mention that this piece on the top looked like a sun, and that would be important in a sunny region. Again, we have the corn crop over here. And while some of you noticed that there looked like there was smoke coming out of this house, and that made you think it might be a cold weather home, others of you noticed that this is a flat roof, and so unlike the wigwam, would not be able to hold off snow very well. Then we moved on to the Kwaka Waka. How to catch otters in a humane way is going to the Kwaka Waka. While we have otters here, many of you noticed that this was about sea otters and that we don't have sea otters, we have river otters. This must be on the oceanous state of Washington. Also going to the Kwaka Waka were these boats. Knowing that they were right on the ocean and that it was an extremely wet, rainy area, you notice that they would need these boats to help them get from place to place. Many of you also notice this creature right here, and you notice similarities in other things that the Kwaka Waka made, such as this totem pole, also heading back to the Kwaka Waka. This village picture is going back to the Kwaka Waka. Many of you notice that the trees were similar between pictures, that they're evergreen trees. They're not very deciduous like our birch that we have here. And it's right on the water. Bookwus, the mask, is going back to the Kwaka Waka. A lot of you noticed that he was there by the ocean and that he lived in the woods and he brought the dead back to life during the winter dance season. Where is it? Here it is. That he enticed the souls of drowned humans and persuaded them with ghost food to come and live with him. So he had to be near a place that was near the ocean shore. Many of you also notice his face was similar to those dragons. And the story of the first cat is going back to the Kwaka Waka. We notice that it takes place on the ocean and that must be where the Kwaka Waka lived. So how'd you do? How many did you get correct out of those? And remember, I gave you very little information, but you used your clues to do a great job at getting many of them back to the correct tribe. And now, at least we know which tribes they need to be returned to so that we can do the ethical and moral thing and give these documents and these artifacts back to the tribes who they belong to. Share with your neighboring team how many did you get correct? And I can't wait to start looking at other tribes with you tomorrow and thinking about what the history was like when these tribes then started to make contact with early settlers.